you feeling stuck, lost, tired, or uninspired? We've all been there, including myself. I'm Coach Des, mindset motivator and lifestyle entrepreneur. I'm here to tell you that the best, unapologetic, and limitless version of yourself is yet to come. The Born Unbreakable podcast is here to inspire just that. With motivating guests from all different walks of life and around the world, their stories will empower you to unlock abundance and your unbreakable spirit. Do you need accountability? Reach out to me for a free consultation of how I can support you in reaching your maximum potential. This episode is brought to you by Sherpa Way Marketing. Are you a business looking to gain greater visibility online through search engine optimized content? Maybe you need effective ad campaigns to kickstart or bolster traffic to your website. Sherpa Way Marketing has seasoned experts that are bilingual in English and Spanish. Let them take the guesswork away and enhance your brand positioning with their comprehensive marketing services. Go to sherpawaymarketing.com. That's SHERPAWAY marketing.com to schedule your free 45-minute consultation today. Welcome to the Born Unbreakable podcast. I'm your host, Coach Des, and I have an incredible couple with me today. So that's a double dose treat, not just one magical soul, but two magical souls. I have Dave Gold and Juli Reeves with me today. And Dave is going to take us on a little adventure of his transformative journey. And we'll get into what he does, but he's many things. He's an author, a lawyer. That's so sophisticated, a lawyer. Every time I say the word lawyer, I think, ooh, that's so much. There's just so much that comes with that. But on top of that, he's an author, and I've studied his book, After the Absolute. This is the best part. Real life adventures with a backwoods Buddha. I mean, you would want to just read it just for the title, which you should. So you should go on Amazon, or you can go to Dave's website, which I'm putting in the show notes so you can grab a copy. But Dave does something really amazing because it's close to my heart because I'm an empath, I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm a business person. And he helps those folks to do something I think that is such a suffering that is pervasive, which is help people with self-doubt and self-sabotage. And it is a real thing. It's so relevant. Anybody who's listening can relate to in some way, shape, or form, whether it's near to you or adjacent, and people that are near to you who have experienced one, both. And Juli is joining him today. She's a healer as well. And so she'll join in and talk about the transformative journey. But welcome, both of you from North Carolina today.
Thanks, Des.
Thanks, Des. We just like to watch you smile and talk. I mean,
Yeah.
you just do it the whole time. We're just taking you in.
Yeah, we are.
So I did go, I'm going to go ahead and say this. I did have a dental cleaning appointment yesterday.
Okay. You didn't have to do that for us, but thanks a lot.
They
was vibrant anyway.
They may have used, they polish my teeth twice. So I'm hoping there's that will just carry on through the week. There's something about when you leave the dentist, like your teeth are extra clean because they use all those weird tools and stuff. Yeah. So maybe I'm just very proud of my dental experience.
Well, tell them they did a great job.
Yeah.
We have a lot to work with, though.
Call up Dr. Kim and let him know tomorrow that I got some good feedback on his work. Yeah. Hollywood Dental here in Las Vegas, Nevada. And they didn't pay me to do that ad. But Dave, as I studied your journey, you have had a few different, parts and pieces to it, from the legal warrior spiritual, journey that you went on. And then some challenging things happened. And then, of course, you met Juli. So why don't you take me through your experience, and then we'll eventually get to where you are and what you're doing today. But I think the listeners would love some adventure today.
Well, it's an, I got 70 years under my belt, so I'm gonna shorten it because people don't have that long to listen. So
I'll give him the elbow
yeah,
if it gets too long.
the nice thing about just having from the waist up, you can't see the kicking that's going on from the waist down. So well, it's funny. I never want to tell the same story twice because it's always fresh, and I don't want it to be a story. I want it to be my experience. And as I said on my website, I thought that my life was a spiritual adventure, which it was. I wrote a book about it. It's funny. You've probably been able to get further in the book than Julie. Julie can't read it. She'll talk more about it. She sees how much I suffered, and she just loves me too much to go back and think, oh, that poor guy. What was he thinking at the time?
I haven't finished it. It's true. I have not finished his book.
No, I don't take it personally.
I will someday.
I take it as an act of love that she loves me too much to do it. But I chose a very difficult path. We'll get to that. And that has been 40 plus years of my life when I identified myself as a spiritual warrior or seeker or whatever the heck it was, adept student. I was serious. I mean, it wasn't. It started in 1973, and really that journey ended in 2013 when I met Julie, and there was nothing left to seek for. There's no point in taking on the identity of someone that was lacking something. Let's put it that way. So I had a deep sense of lack and inadequacy, as many people do. And you talk about self-doubt and self-sabotage, and those are two of the byproducts, or they come with that thing. When you don't feel you're enough, you're always doubting yourself. And even if something comes your way, you think, I don't deserve it. I'm not ready for it. Not yet. Let me polish up I call it cleaning up for the maid. I got to get better before the good things start to come your way. So that was a big part of my life. But also, I've always been interested in business or drawn to business. And one of the things that I mentioned in my book, that when I finally got a taste of spirituality from what I referred to at the time as spirituality, from the man that I accepted as my first teacher, I wanted to quit. I didn't want anything. I thought this surpasses everything. There's nothing I'm ever going to generate externally that's going to give me the same peace that I would be trying to create by, acquiring things. Mm-hmm. And he said, you're not meant to be a wood chopping monk. So I've had this dual path, and now it's not so weird. You're an empath. You're living it too. You're in the world, but at the same time, there's a part of you that's always yours. There's a part of you that's always in touch. There's a part of you that's always in tune. And now there's much more of a space for that. But when I was doing it, especially being a trial attorney in a corrupt West Virginia town, it was a double life. And I lived these two lives very, very strongly. And I don't want anyone to live in duality sounds like, a little pretentious. I don't want people to live divided lives. I don't want people to feel people are trying to balance different. It's not about balance. There's a unity that comes. And that unity, I could talk more about the journey if we wish, but I'd fast forward to, so anyway, I had these years, and I built this very successful law practice, which I sold in 1993. And I had a book. I wanted to write that book, among other things. And I think I'd also run my course with the man I accepted as my teacher at the time. And I ended up in North Carolina as an entrepreneur and built a software not alone, but with some other founders, built and sold a software company. And then after I sold that, I thought, well, my God, let's get married. So I did. I took a shot at that and got married and had a child, adopted a daughter, and really still found myself feeling inadequate, feeling like it didn't matter what success I had, even in terms of some type of spiritual awakenings or attunements that I had, still they weren't feeding some essential division that I had within myself. Mm-hmm. And then I met Julie, and we can talk. I don't know how you want to structure that. I love to go to the back of the book because there's nothing I love more than to talk about how much this woman has changed my life. But when Julie came into my life, that's when I think for the first time in my life I stopped doubting myself.
Wow.
I didn't totally stop. I mean, the doubt's always going. I'm wired a certain way. I got 4,000 years of people that just kept doubting and wandering in various deserts. So that's not. I'm not gonna say I'm cured. But fundamentally, when a love beyond my dreams was revealed to me, and I saw this woman of such stature and grace and beauty and depth and integrity, who saw me and loved me and for who I was and what I was, then I could no longer hang on to the same old self-image that I had.
Mm-hmm.
That has been, and so it's for everyone. It's not going to be a Julie that's going to come into their lives. And she came in at 62. It should come in at 52, 42, 32. I might have just thought, oh, I'm not ready, or sabotaged or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
she came in at the perfect time in my perfect, in my life at the perfect time. But at some point, the perfection project needs to stop. The idea that I need to be something fundamentally different than I am before I can start living life, before I can start enjoying my success, before I can build a success that feeds my soul instead of killing it, which is one of my taglines. Whatever it is that can open our heart enough that we can see past our own limitations, our own limited ideas, and our own unwillingness to step fully into the beauty and perfection of who we are. Whatever that trigger is, I don't care what it is, but whatever it is, that's what I want for everyone, because I suffered for 62 years and I'm not suffering now. I mean, yeah, I drop a brick on my toe. Yeah, sure, I suffer. Or if I wouldn't, when I watch the Steelers go out, in the playoffs, that hurts too. But in terms of like just waking up and thinking, oh my God, I got to live another day as myself. I can tell you, Des, every day I do get up and I can't believe the good fortune that I get another day on this planet. And that's not how I'm wired. And that's not how my people are
Mm-hmm.
wired. We're wired to think, oh my God, where's the next pogrom coming from? Or where's the next, whatever. And so I think part of it, and I'm going to be quiet now in a second, because I feel like I've talked myself out almost, is that whatever it is for us to flip that switch and to be able to start appreciating the beauty that life is, with all the anguish and all of the things that come with, especially being an empath, and that we hurt more than others. We see things
So
others
much.
see, and there's a sense of being alone because others don't see what we see and feel what we feel. But
Mm-hmm.
that door of empath is is the heart. And just like with you, I know that I can see in you and that your heart's been broken, in different ways. But every time it breaks, it opens you up to greater capacity to love more, to be more, to give more, to manifest more. It's just who you are. And
So much. Ugh. I feel like I'm gonna cry hearing you say that because, one of the things I want to acknowledge, and then I want to ask Julie a question because I'm really interested how her perspective coming into your life and making such a big impact is this. So, because you said she came into your life at 62. There's a lot of people listening, various ages. I've interviewed everyone from a teenager to people who have decades and decades of experiences. And a lot of times, there is exactly what you described: years of anguish, trauma, not feeling enough, bad relationships, bad business experiences, you know, losing everything, money, feeling like you lose time that when none of us can get it back, it's gone, and just hearing you talk it helps us to understand that there is hope. It's, not it doesn't have to be this, devastation of just wallowing in the things that have happened to us or that we feel like we've struggled through. Or I know I've had these dark moments of feeling just completely alone. Like you're the only person this terrible thing is happening to. And when you open yourself up and you become vulnerable and you connect with people, you realize how much you're not alone. So if you are someone listening and you've just gone through the ringer in life, just know that there is more, and you are meant for more, and there is so much that is beautiful ahead. So I just want to make sure to say that.
one thing before we turn the microphone over to Julie, just on that in months before I met, I guess about a year before I met Julie, I lost $1 million of my own money in a company. I had a string of successes, and literally, it brought me to my knees, not just to lose that much money, but to lose. The second spiritual group that I was involved with, that I was on the board of directors and quite invested in for a dozen years, turned out to be the guru turned out to have feet of clay, and my marriage fell apart. All of that, all of that happened at that point. And
Mhm.
in the traditional literature, everything falls apart, and whatever, the dark night of the soul. I don't know what the correlation is between hitting bottom and then rising to the heights. But I know that, and you have it behind you. It's the born unbreakable. And I think that's why either consciously or subconsciously or semi-consciously you chose that, because it's that unbreakable, whatever you call it, spirit, trust, connection to something divine, the connection to good, connection to the goodness within yourself, the trust that life is bringing you something better. And I just want all the listeners, and I will be quiet, to know how fortunate, and I would dare use the word blessed they are to have you in their world, who has this heart and has this experience and has this mission and destiny to bring that message out, not just as a message, but as a living, it's a living through who you are.
Thank you for that. So, Julie, what was the magic? What was it at the time that brought you to David, and how did that change things for you and for both of you together as a couple?
Well, Des, at first there didn't seem to be any magic. And I say that, and as soon as those words come out of my mouth, I think, that's so not true. There was a ton of magic.
I was going to kick her under the table.
It just, in some of the traditional ways, there wasn't, like, there was no chemistry between us. There was no spark. We had no idea that eventually we would, be sitting here together as a couple. We had no clue of that at all. He had been out of his marriage for 4 years, but I had only been out of mine for 6 months. And so the last thing I was thinking was of recoupling. I wanted to completely uncouple and have some time, like, this is what, David was mentioning a little bit about. We get these ideas about we need to be a better version of ourselves. Well, I thought I needed to end the marriage, be completely done, go through all the healing that I needed to go through, work on myself, reclaim what was lost, all of that. I had all of these ideas. I also had 2 children. My idea was, like, I'm an independent, strong woman. I'm going to raise them the rest of their through high school and maybe into college by myself. I don't need, I don't want to be with somebody else. I had lots of ideas about what the rest of my life was going to look like, or the rest of, child raising years. So when David just, landed in my life after only 6 months, I thought it just didn't even occur to me. The only hint I'll have, and I'll tell you this, is that after we spoke on the phone for the first time, because that's how we met. We met on the phone. I was moving, my family was moving from one city in North Carolina to another, and he was welcoming the new families into the class that my daughter was going to be in, because his daughter was in the same class. So he was calling these new families, as he says, it names on a spreadsheet. He called me to welcome my family and see what he could, how he could help us, or whatever, however he was choosing to do that. I ignored him for a few weeks before I called him back, because that's how, I was preoccupied with other things. He was very insistent and persistent. Eventually we talked. It was lots of ease in the conversation. We were really comfortable with each other. We went deep fast. I found myself telling him that I was separated from my husband of 19 years before I'd even told many of my closest friends. Because he's so easy to talk to. You can tell this about him, right?
Yes.
He goes deep fast. And I keep trying to pull him. He keeps getting out of the frame, and I keep kind of pulling him back in.
That's because I want to step back and admire her as she's, honestly.
All right,
I'll admire you on the screen. All right. Get on. The story gets good here. Go ahead, get to the good parts.
After I hung up the phone, I'm telling you, this is the hint that I had, but I didn't see it as that. When I said goodbye to him and hung up the phone, I was sitting at my desk, and I was just staring straight ahead for a moment. And I heard really clearly in my head, I heard Julie Gold. But I had really, like, it did not register. What I thought to myself, because I've studied dreams a lot, I thought, I wonder what kind of gold Dave's going to bring into my life. And of course, he's brought lots of gold. and we're legally married and we live we're having our lives together, so it was both. I didn't take his name though. I'm Julie Reeves. Maybe someday I'll be Julie Gold, but
She's
not
showing
now.
that dreamer. You can't push me around. Because
That's right.
So yeah, it didn't feel, we didn't have that kind of magic, but we became friends. And I would say the way I thought of us was like spiritual brother and sister. He was a man who'd been on the kind of spiritual path that you read about, that people write books about, that he did write a book about. I had my own, my story is way much different than that, but I had that same, belief and this inner knowing, and maybe even it's like an inner compass that guided me in my life on a path that's not the normal prescribed path. It was a little bit different than the prescribed path. The things that I chose to do, I did them because they fed me and my heart and my soul, not because it's what was going to bring me, fame, fortune, success in the common way, the traditional way. But so yeah, so there were things about those early days of us in our friendship days that were magical, that were really, sometimes we can't believe them ourselves.
Yeah.
But again, this was just with us as friends. And then, do you want to talk about that? Should we talk about the specifics of that, or?
I mean, how wild do you want it? You want an adventure?
Yeah, I want an adventure. So I mean,
The story behind this. Well, wherever you want to go.
yeah, well, and at what point? Because you obviously developed this friendship. There was this connection. There was this, understanding of the journeys that you've both been on, despite differences. At what point did you decide that you were going to make a life together? That you were going to go from friendship to something more than that?
Well, I'll tell you, Des, we really didn't have a choice. I mean, it was barely a choice. What happened was that
I loved you trying to language it, and I'm thinking she ain't gonna. There's no way anybody's gonna be able to language this baby. Go ahead, just lay it on him.
Over the course of a few days, the way I describe it is that the door to our love was opened and our love was revealed. So we went, in the 3-day period of time, we went from just being friends, as far as we knew, that was it, to knowing that we would spend the rest of our lives together in a 3-day period of time.
3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 days we weren't together.
And 3 days. 3 days is a bit of an exaggeration. It was really by the end of the second day, we knew we would spend the rest of our lives together. But we were apart, so we had to make sure that we had chemistry.
That was the 3rd day when I flew back home.
And so,
okay, that makes sense.
The 3rd day we kissed and realized there was chemistry, and then we knew for sure. And it was so this is magical, and far from traditional, but it was like a door was open and we stepped across the threshold, and on the other side of that threshold was our love, fully formed, eternal, ever present, and we just walked into it. We just stepped into it. We just said yes.
That's a book that you tuned into. Right?
And if I can, yeah, I will, even if I can't. Is I don't know what your demographics are like, but as a guy, I'm still thinking, wait a minute, she's my friend. Okay, I don't want to. You know how it is. Sometimes you miss the signals and you screw up a good friendship, or and oh my God, I'm not that kind of girl. That kind of stuff. But it was I just got happier. It wasn't even like, oh my God, I'm happy because of what might be happening between us. I just was filled with an ecstasy every time we talked. I couldn't when I wasn't on the phone, I'm in a board meeting, I'm supposed to be looking at spreadsheets. I'm like a little guy, like my stepson in 10th grade, who's, is on his phone when he's supposed to look at his math book or whatever. I'm just constantly with her, and all I can do is wait for the next moment when I can hear her voice. And I still in my mind can think, wait a second, what's happening? We're friends. And then after at the end of the second day, it was just so clear. And I can tell you this, I never could have imagined, it wasn't like any happiness I ever thought of. I thought, oh, I'll get rich, I'll get famous, I'll get enlightened, I'll get the woman of my dreams, I'll get this, and then I will feel that. I just felt,
Mm.
this phenomenal, and I've had spiritual bliss. It's not like I've had all kinds. This is and this is heaven. It was heaven on earth. And then the real question was, okay, I'm flying home from Denver to North Carolina. Let's see if there's any chemistry, because this will be really funny if we have this thing, but there's still no chemistry. But she took the kids, I met her after she dropped her children off at school, and we kissed, and the chemistry's great.
Lucky for that,
Yeah.
to have such that intensity in such a short period of time. And I don't know if this is serendipitous. I started listening to this book. It's called Strength to Strength. Hold on, let me make sure that I tell you it's on my Audible. And it's by Arthur C. Brooks. He's a professor at Harvard, and I know he does a lot of other important things. So I'm sure there's many more credences I should be giving him. But what he talks about is that there's like two channels that you experience, and what happens is that in the first half of your life, you're chasing after these, a lot of what you've talked about here, and even when you talk about the marriage, the success you had, you were a lawyer, and then you had the technology company you started, and money. I mean, these are all things that we chase after: money or fame or pleasure. And but it's fascinating because the author discusses how there's like an average expectancy on those things, right? There's like an expiration date. And
Mhm.
so if that's what you're focused on chasing, obtaining, getting, holding on to, it will be short lived. And if you're looking for the secret to success or happiness, it's not that. Because after you've done the achievements, which for most different industries and professions is happens in your 40s, then it's like that dopamine, you're not getting it anymore. So it doesn't matter how much more money you make, or it's like, yeah, well, yeah, that it's just not fulfilling.
Yeah.
So he talked about in that second chapter or phase or second half of life, it has to be faith, family, friendships, and service, because that's that longevity. It's bigger than you. It's not just about big. And I do think that there is a sense of maturity and ego checking. And it was funny, Dave, reading about your early days, because that's often what I think we battle through, right? When you're going through proving yourself, wanting acceptance, you want people to know how smart you are, how bright you are, how talented you are, so you can get validated and accolades. But then somehow the fulfillment of that just is not everlasting, you know? So I think it's just a fascinating read, which I just started, but that's kind of the essence of it. And I think it's just something good for us to understand, because if you're in that earlier chapter, or you're not at that prime or that peak, it helps you to think through, well, how do you want your legacy to be? How do you want that future to look after you've reached all of those milestones, so to speak? Um,
And of course, we don't have to do it in that order, right? Like, I'm from a different generation than David, which I think afforded me a bit more freedom in that.
mhm,
And I hope very much that my children won't have to do it, that they can skip a lot of that. Uh,
mhm,
but I didn't do nearly as much of that as he did. I felt a little more freedom to know I'm going to follow my heart, my path, do my service more from the beginning. Now, here's the thing:
mhm,
life doesn't life still didn't support that. I mean, not life. culture and society still didn't support that. And even my own mind and heart, well, not heart, but my own mind didn't support that. So even though that's the path that I walked,
Mhm.
I had all kinds of stories I told myself about how I wasn't good enough, I wasn't doing the right thing, I should have been doing other things, I didn't feel, and we're all of us here are empaths, so we know we feel other people's thoughts and
Mhm.
feelings more than they maybe even are aware of feeling them themselves, right? So I
Yes.
could feel judgment from other people. I could feel, um, you know, the expectation from other people. And then, of course, I had my own judgments of myself and expectations of myself that I wasn't doing the right thing. So, that mars that path a little bit in some ways. And I hope that future generations, you're young. Look at you. I feel, look at what you're doing. Like you're stepping past some of that stuff. You're getting right to the stuff that is meaningful, that is fulfilling. I hope that my kids can skip all of that, or
Yeah.
a lot of it. They're not going to skip all of it, but a lot of it, and just go right to the second half, the second.
Yeah.
And
Well,
if
and
I,
I was gonna ask you both too about your kids and how the the learning and the experiences that you've had change, if at all, the way that you communicate with them when they're, because they're going to go through the things that you've gone through, whether it's heartbreak or some kind of experience in school or in business that is less than what they would have wanted. How does that help you be the guide for them?
Well, that question just jumps right into our present moment. I have a son who's 17. My daughter's 20. Um, my son, as David said earlier, is in his first romantic relationship. Meaningful, reciprocated one. Um, my my daughter's she hasn't found one special person, but she's had relationships, she's had life experiences, she's in Italy right now on study abroad. She's had her heart broken by not feeling like she belongs, and by not being able to find her what she feels like her path is. Why do people not see me? Why can't people see me for who I am? Those kind of questions. And I just feel like my kids are so fortunate. I mean, I feel like I hit the jackpot in my life. I really did. And my children are so fortunate to have David in their lives and have us as a couple, and of course me as their mother, because we have so much that we can offer them at such a younger age. Sometimes I think, like, oh, am I giving them stuff that's a little bit too much at a young age? But no, I always answer myself no. Because the younger that we learn these things, the better. The more that it just becomes ingrained in us and just part of how we see the world and how we act and are in the world.
Mhm.
And, we are able to give our teens a bigger picture, a bigger perspective of life than, I mean, we had to fight for that perspective in our own lives.
Mhm.
It didn't, nobody gave it to us. Nobody told us about it. David spent decades with these spiritual teachers, trying to find that bigger perspective. I spent decades of my own trying to find it because I knew it was there. I could feel it, but I didn't know what it was. And now we have the words and we can just shout it out to our kids.
Yeah.
and yeah. And then, so here, this is interesting. It goes back to something I want to make a point, and I'm glad I can bring it when you're talking about these different stages of life and stuff. And there's one way that I can look at. I call it turning the jewel because she's my jewel. And just mean like, you look at a certain way and you turn the jewel a little bit and the light shines differently. And it's just beautiful to live life. But I just keep turning the jewel and seeing different realities being created. And one way I can turn the jewel and say I had to kind of punch myself out with spiritual success and business success and, blah, 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 all those things. Right. And then once I was punched out, I could surrender and something bigger could come. And that you can turn the jewel that way. But the other way that I see it now is I see the perfection. And this is the gift that life's given us and that we give to others. And you give it too. is I just want everyone to see the perfection of their own life. We look at you. We should see perfection. We don't see whatever warts. Even if you didn't get your teeth, it would have been fine. We'd still be perfect. But the point is that I just see. Oh my God! Yes, I spent 15 years of trial lawyer in a corrupt West Virginia town. But sometimes being a lawyer comes in handy. Sometimes having that skill set comes. I had a software company and I was on the phones with the other sales rep making $100 a day. It was hell. But I can tell you, I'm not afraid of the telephones, as my wife will tell you. I'm not. There's just so many things that now that I've stepped into myself fully, that irrespective of how I chunk my life out into segments, that it's all here. It's all available. Everything. Just talking about the heartbreak. It's all available here. And it gets down. And I want to tie it into the children because what I have learned, and my daughter's been, all children are challenging. My daughter's been has put us through quite a bit and been quite been quite a challenging journey. And the first thing is what we have to give them is our love. They know, one of the reasons we both as committed people stepped out of our first marriage is we didn't want our kids to think this was the model for relationship. We had no way of dreaming that we could create this model for relationship, but they see it and they know it. And it's in their genes. They soak in our love. They don't roll their eyes anymore. They just really feel, oh, wait a minute. Ashley can't expect his 17-year-old girlfriend to be like my wife. But he sees, wait a minute, this is what authenticity looks like. This is what, and I watch him treat her, and he has this in him, and Julie's instilled it, but I know I have part of it, that he sees the respect and the integrity that he sees in that other person, that he demands from himself and demands from her. So there's just the way that what we have to transmit is the love that we share. And for my own sake, and that's true especially, it's letting my daughter live her journey. And to be there to give what I can give and to offer what I can give, but to not, I banged my head against the wall and made messes, what seemed like messes, trying to have her give the life that I thought that she should have. And that's not that's not my choice. She has a different destiny. And so I think so much of what I'm giving to my daughter now is, and to her children as well, in different ways, is just the acceptance. The same, you can't accept anyone else until you accept you. I don't care. You want to be less judgmental, you're going to be just as judgmental as you are with yourself. You're not going to be able to get any less judgmental with another human being, and less self-accepting and self-loving than you can. So to the extent that I have that with myself or whatever, that's my relationship with myself. That's the relationship that I have. And that's where the security comes from. You think the security comes from, oh, Dad, I know you'll always be there. Yeah, I'll always be there. But I'm always going to be, sometimes always being there means me stepping back and letting you take the steps that I wish you didn't have to take, but I know you have to take. And the confidence that I have in the perfection of her path, regardless of what it looks like, is a confidence that she can morph or instill in herself.
Mm-hmm. That is amazing. I want to ask you about the work you do today, but in listening to both of you, another question popped to my mind because this is a present thing that I see in relationships, and I'm curious your feedback given your experience, which is I meet couples, including friends, who do not feel like they're in the relationship they're meant for. They don't describe it as you and Julie would describe your relationship. However, because they have kids, they'll say, stay together for the kids because whatever the because is. There's lots of reasons why people fill in their blank of what that is, but it's in short form, it's for the kids. And then their rationale becomes, well, when they're 18, then we can, figure out they're to be adult, they can understand, there can be this transition, and there's some sort of process by which it's timed that these events will occur and it will somehow make better the situation and the feelings. And so I let people be what they are and how they want to be, but I'm curious if that is sustainable in those situations, and I
Well,
would love your feedback.
you danced around that one so beautifully. I mean, you should have been a lawyer. The way
Um, I did this, so I have something to say about this. Um, I love being a mother more than anything on the planet, and I always David and I have an agreement that we always exclude each other from this because I can't pick. So he's in his own category. So, but I love being a mom, and I was going to med school as a career changer in my mid 30s, and I gave that up to be a stay at home mom. I've never regretted that decision for a second. I just love it. I'm a natural mother. If my life ended at the end of today, I would say that I got everything that I wanted. Everything that I most wanted in my life, I have gotten. And that includes this man sitting right here next to me. And it includes my children, and it includes being a mom and just soaking up every year of their lives, every moment that I can. So imagine then when I realized that this relationship with their father wasn't working. And I realized that before my second child was born. But there's a step of realizations that happens for most couples who are going to end, who are realizing that their marriages aren't sustainable. It's usually not any one moment. It's almost always there's a whole bunch of little moments that lead you to that final time where you go, it's done. I have to move on. So I can tell you dozens of, oh, there was this moment. Oh, there was this moment. Oh, there was this moment. But the moment for me, and let me just go back a second. I didn't want to miss out on any of my kids' childhood. I just, that fear of like, I'm going to have to send them off with their father and I'm going to miss so much of their lives when I'm like, I can't get enough. Like I have this hunger to I want to bear witness to every moment of their lives that I can. I revel in it, and it feeds me and it brings me such indescribable joy. So just the thought of not being able to do that, just, I was stricken with fear. And that fear kept me in the marriage for a very long time. And I told myself all these same stories. I'll just wait till they're older, wait until, once maybe it'll be better in high school. Maybe maybe that'll be okay. Or maybe we'll wait till they're done with high school. When they graduate and they go off to college, then we can split up, all these different ideas that I had. But one of the final steps for me was realizing deeply in me. Now, people had told me this, so it's not like it was the first time I had heard this, but it was the final time I needed to hear it. And that was that I realized deep in my being that I was the model that my kids were getting every single day for what relationship looked like. And I did not want them to have that a minute longer than they had already had it. And if that meant that I had to make that leap into the great unknown of what the future was going to look like, if that meant I had to risk that I would not be able to, raise them the rest of their minority years the way I wanted to raise them with me in the picture all the time, I was willing to take that risk because we learn by modeling our entire lives long. It's the most prevalent way that we learn our entire lives is by modeling. That doesn't stop when we turn 18 or, 12. I was modeling for them fear. You stay in a relationship out of fear. I was modeling for them a really, two people who were deeply unhappy and unfulfilled, but were staying together for some weird, how do you make sense of that when you're a kid? Why are these people? And then how would I guide them when they were older, helping them know what to look for and what to not settle for when I myself had settled?
Pot,
And
meat, kettle. No, you know?
exactly. And so I took the leap. And it was
Wow.
scary, and it was scary for a long time even afterward. You know, it was a terrible divorce. Um, I remember, you know, it reminds me of a therapist friend of mine once said when she told me that before she had become this wonderful therapist, that she had been a cocaine addicted, you know, and alcohol addicted 20 into 30 something person. And she said, if I had known at the time that I decided to stop drugs, if I had known that I would lose everything, everything. The only relationship that she kept was her relationship with her mom. She lost every other friend, her job, her town, her house, you know, everything. She said, I never would have quit. But fortunately, life doesn't let us know, you know, that there's a blessing in that. If I could have
Mhm.
known how difficult and painful the journey would have been, I never would have done it. But I didn't know. I just knew I had to do it. And
Mhm.
life was gracious enough to give me this man to journey through it with.
She didn't know she was getting the next
Amazing.
divorce lawyer in the process too to live with and could get her through.
And just, you know, life and something that I want people to know is life really does want to give us more than we can imagine. It's just waiting. Life is just waiting to give each and every one of us more than we can imagine. For some of us, you know,
Mhm.
it's a love like David and I have. For other people, it's a dream career that they never could have imagined that fills them up every day. They can't wait to wake up in the morning. For some, it's friends, you know, friendships that are beyond what they can imagine. Children, parents, like, you know, the list is infinite. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
look any one way. But for, you know, if we open our eyes, well, first of all, open our eyes to see, like, what do I have in my life that I'm maybe not even seeing that is amazing? But also then open your
Mhm.
heart and just receive whatever life wants to give you. And it may not come in the package that you think it's going to come in, or even in the package you want it to come in, or the timing. You know, David did not come at the time I wanted him to come in. It wasn't, you know, this isn't the time. No, you're not, you know, you're not supposed to be here now after just 6 months. But that's the
Yeah.
time that it was.
And if I,
So
so one thing I got
powerful.
to say before I forget this is that I just
Yeah.
feel so strongly that this is you. There's something so big and beautiful that is yours to have. And I just want you to know I would not lie to you. I would not speak it if I didn't feel it really strongly. So I just have to speak it in this moment, even though it's probably a little bit off topic, but it's never off topic. So just know that she's speaking directly to your heart right now and to the truth of what you know about
And
her.
it means so much. It really does because I often get the question, you know, why do you do this? This is so hard work, you know, doing a podcast and you do consulting and you have coaching clients and it seems like it's so much work. I I never call it work. I guess I just don't even see it that way. It's when something is a calling or a purpose, it's you do it because it is you. It's not a it's hard to describe it, honestly, when I think sometimes I'm having conversations with people. I've always and I've started to try to figure out what words to use, and I've said that I'm just a vessel. It's really I am a vessel for wanting to bring greatness to people who I know don't see the greatness in them. That's the reason you're here sharing your story, having this conversation because somebody and here's the other thing to me. If it's one person, that's enough. That's enough for me. It's not about reaching a certain number or a certain threshold. It's about waking up. And if you impact one person, you could change everything. I mean, I feel blessed every day. I have conversations with people in a jewelry store, in a grocery store, and I know that that's changing something in me in that few minutes that I talked with them. So I know the power that can happen just from moments like this. And I don't sometimes know if I choose the right words, but that's why.
And
You
if
know?
I, a couple things, I don't know if I can remember them. It goes back to when we are talking about the, like, I'm thinking again, the male hero's journey of conquering them, whatever. And what I realized is I wanted to get rid of my ego so I'd be spiritual. But now I realize every time I step into ego, I step out of love. I step out of presence. And I don't want to do that. I want to be like you in the jewelry store, in the Walmart, with the Prime. I just want to be, I kidded one of my clients yesterday and said, "You're a roving ambassador of goodwill without portfolio." That's what I want to be. I just want to be a ambassador of love. And so ego puts me in, it's not bad. It's a different vibration. And
It
that's
is
what you say. You just want to continue to live in that vibration, whether it's one or a million people that are hearing you. And I want to add a bit of a male perspective to what maybe traditional male perspective on terms of getting, because I'm the same way. I made commitments. When I held my daughter, we adopted my daughter 20 hours after she was born. I'm holding, and I said, "You're my beloved daughter. I love and protect you all the days of my life." What does that mean? I'm going to leave her mother? I promise God, I'll be here forever. And one thing that Julie, that I want to mention is that Julie and I independently, not even knowing the other existed, in the midst of these marriages that we were staying in out of a sense of obligation or fear or whatever, was that we weren't going to live without love. We both said to ourselves, without knowing the other existed, that we weren't going to live without love. And I think that is I'll just let it sit with that, because I can see you got it. And I trust the people listening get it too. That's a declaration you're making to life. And then,
well, I think, Des, just to interrupt for a second, I feel that those moments each of us had independent of each other were so pivotal that, if we could see the way the universe works, I think we would have seen everything like pivot on its axis in that moment when we made that declaration. I think that life just pivoted right then and there and aimed us toward each other. And of course, we had no idea.
Yeah, the universe conspired
it did.
in that
But we
moment.
had to conspire with it. We had to give our consent to be a co-conspirator. And one other short piece that it occurred to me as we were talking, my own experiences. Yeah, I was staying out of a sense of obligation. I made a promise, and that's all true. But really, I realized when Julie came into my life, what I really had to let go of by letting go of my marriage was my narrative of my self narrative of being a tragic figure. That was courageous, because I said, "Oh, I'm in a, I'm a martyr. I'm staying in this. I've done this and I've done that." And people need to be honest. It really behooves us to be honest with ourselves and see how much of what's keeping us in is just inertia, is fear, and is the narrative we have that we don't know what the hell. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to be happy. It was frightening to me. What do you do when when the dog catches the car? I caught the damn car. I didn't know what to do with it. And so this is where courage isn't just, whatever we think it is. A lot of times it's just being honest enough to say, I don't know who the hell I'm going to be if I'm not miserable.
Yeah. Radical self-acceptance. Like,
Hey, you got it. That's it. That radical self-acceptance, and even accepting the fact that we're not radically self-accepting ourselves right now.
yeah.
That's just another part of it. Oh, I'm not ready yet. I got to do more. No. You accept the radical self-acceptance is whatever capacity you have to accept and appreciate and love and welcome yourself and your experience in the moment. That's the perfect part.
Yeah.
When
And
you,
Dave, and that kind of brings me to your process, because I know that in all of the years that you've made mistakes, learned from them, grown from them, you do have a process. So when someone comes to you in despair or in question and wanting to, figure some things out, like many of us do at different times of our life, what Can you share more about that process that you would walk someone through?
Well, if I gave you a process, she would kick me 3 times under the. She doesn't like when I do something, the 3 steps to this or the 5 steps to that. I can give you data points. I
Data
can tell
point.
you what the data points. Okay. So one is that I was very fortunate. We don't have the time or the whatever, but I had someone very dear to me say to me, when I see you, I see only perfection. And I knew that was true. I couldn't square it with all my bill of particulars and all the indictment I have of myself for being self-reflective for all those years. But I see you, I just see perfection. And so I can't tell you, is that part of the process? Is that just who I am? I hold that space, and it's true. It's not like a mantra or like, well, let's create some alternative reality. No, you're perfect. So first, I see that, I know it, I hold that space, and something, so that's the most important thing. I just hold them in love, and I hold them in perfection. And then,
hold on, I want to say something about that.
Yeah.
So again, this is where being an empath comes in, because I'm sure you've had this experience. Do you know how many times in my life growing up I would see people, but I would see them in their wholeness and their perfection. I didn't realize that other people didn't see people the same way, And then I could see how their quest to be, their ego-driven quest, which we all have egos, I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but took them away from who they are. So like they didn't square. The life that I would see people living didn't square with who I saw them as, because I could see them in their wholeness, in their perfection, in their souls. And that's what David's, that's what he's talking about. And some people have that ability, and we just don't know that that's maybe a way that we can live our lives. Mm-hmm. And then others of us can learn to see people in their perfection. It's just seeing the soul of a person. Mm-hmm. Or David might say the heart. It's both. It's not either or. All right, go on with your whatever particulars.
Yeah, well, I'm good. I've got amnesty for all my stuff. And I'll give you an example from yesterday where and he's someone I haven't seen for 35 years. Just saw something I posted on social media and came back, and we're working together, whatever you want to call it, collaborating together. And I'm on this radical self-acceptance thing, and I just said, how do you see the way he loves his wife? That's the model. He only sees perfection. He's patient. He understands the wounds that caught. There's something that we love, and whatever it is that we love is the model for. We know how to do that with ourselves. We know the process, even if we don't know how to apply it to ourselves. So one, it's being able to sense and draw out that which we already love, that way that we already are living in that perfection, of seeing the perfection, living in that perfection. And again, I don't need to tell you this. Julie and I live real lives. We don't always, we don't always agree on things. We can get into a whole other thing of how we resolve or how we've learned to work with this. But anyway, so I think having that model for love and having some way that you can then not just show them, but actually to have them be able to tap that vein of love. And then I'd say a big one, I talk about pulling thorns out of lion's paws, is with everyone, there's something, I say the punishment doesn't fit the crime. There's the smallest things trigger the biggest responses in us, right? And then when I see that discrepancy, I can often just feel it immediately. But pretty soon you start seeing, oh, wait a minute, this is a wound. And taking everyone as with wounds, not necessarily, being so wounded you can't, but knowing that wound is what's causing that reaction, that response, and then being able to start unpacking whatever that looks like. And often this is happening more and more, and because we're going deep. I'll go deep. A lot of times I feel relatives that have passed, that are just in their world, that are just literally, I'll just say, do you have anybody in your life that you really cared about that passed away or something like that? That is also like, and I guess this gets to something else, is that we're all in a multi-dimensional partnership. You know that. So just if someone comes to me and they don't buy that or they won't, I can't help them because I'm not strong enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm just not the guy that's going to be able to change everything. That whatever can be able to lead them to where they need to go. So just being receptive and being a participant and whatever that it doesn't mean you're talking to dead people all the time. It just means that you're sensitive to how the universe, which is just love and wants nothing but what's best for us. I'm lucky I have it next to me, right? That knowing that which wants best for us is wants the best for them, and being able to start opening to them. And then it's a love journey. And sometimes it's 30 days and sometimes it's long. It doesn't matter. I never know. I just play my part up on the stage and move on. But I leave them, I leave everyone better than I found, just like you do. I just leave everyone better than I found them. And just because I love them. And it's so much because she loves me.
And it is so powerful. And I was tearing. I was trying to hold back my tears because I think as empaths, and that's what's so special about this conversation, it's exactly how you described it, Julie. You see people in a certain light that oftentimes they don't see themselves and others don't see them, but you see it,
Yeah.
and it is in within us all.
Mhm.
And like Dave said, you have to get through the wounds, pick out the thorns, because we all have scars, but they become scars after they heal, right? And we know what we've learned from them, and they make us, like you said, they open us up to more love,
And if I could just quote, there's a quote from Panache Desai, who Julie and I listen to every morning. And he said that the traumas that we chose become the connection points we share. So every little broken heart that, and I say we chose, meaning let's assuming that we chose and we came down here, that's what we're going to do. Every one of those just opens us up to greater and greater love.
Yeah. Well, so I want to ask you both a few questions that kind of help open up people getting to know you. My first one is, what makes you unbreakable? What makes the two of you unbreakable?
Are you asking that each of us individually or as a couple?
It could be both, depending on how you feel. You take the question.
I know with a capital K that our love is indestructible. And I just heard me tell this story before, but shortly before I met Julie, I finally had a deep immersion into consciousness. And I looked for the limits that's how I said, whoa, this is big. I wonder where the edges are. And there were no edges. And that's how I knew it was infinite. And I had to look to the edges to find the infinity. And I look for the edges of our love and I cannot find it.
Wow. I want that on a t-shirt.
I want that in your life. The hell with a t-shirt.
That's so good. I love that. That's beautiful. That was
I don't
amazing.
just say that because it sounds good. I see she's trying to sweet. I don't need to sweet talk her anymore.
No, I feel that. So
These are our experiences. The words come from the experience, not, the words are not hollow.
yeah,
They're not because they sound good. But that sounded really good, David. You
Thanks.
did a good job.
Good. Kudos for Dave.
yeah. That's beautiful. Okay, well, what about a bucket list item? What's on your bucket list? Something you want to do that you haven't done?
Well, I'm in the process of doing this, so it's not that I'm doing it some, but I so look forward to the day when I have such complete trust in life that I wake up every morning just excited for what the day is going to bring me and navigate through it, just allowing the day to meet me where I am. Not planning, not having my own ideas about what I want it to look like, where I just live in the moment, just accepting and relishing whatever life brings me in that moment. And I'm a lot closer to that than I was a year ago, and it's a very exciting journey. And I get to do it with this man.
That
We
is.
do everything together.
So I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to be able to get this out without crying. So just it's your own damn fault for asking the question. But honestly, when you said that, the only thing that I thought is I just want to see you as happy as we are. That's all I want in this moment.
That makes me happy to hear that. Oh,
To say that you're not, I just want you to, I just want us to sit around and laugh like hell. Compare
oh my
notes.
God. That's awesome. Okay. So I'll have you answer for each other.
Mm.
Okay. So, Dave, what would you say is one of Julie's superpowers?
She's her mother, her maternal. She's the divine mother, and she is a phenomenal mother in her body.
I knew that from the moment her ether came into the frame. Honestly, that's a vibration that you carry even before you share the story about your children.
Well,
Um, Julie, what about you? What would you say is one of Dave's superpowers?
he can, he's done this several times today with you already. He can really feel what is present in a person's life or heart, even before they've spoken it. He feels it. He feels it
That's
in his
wonderful.
being, and he can speak to it. It's part of what makes him just so phenomenal at what he does. Is because we don't always know the things that are chasing us around in the dark, right?
No,
But David can dial in on them and oftentimes speak them before someone's even aware of it themselves.
that's powerful. That is a superpower.
Yeah, it is.
That is a superpower. What about a self-limiting belief? What's a self-limiting belief that each of you have had that you've had to overcome over time?
Well, mine, the one that feels biggest to me right now in this moment is the one I spoke of earlier, which is me just me being more aligned with my authentic nature than I realized, but judging it as wrong. That I was wrong. I was not making the right choices, that I wasn't likable, lovable. I was never, all of
Mhm.
that because it didn't look like everyone else's.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was wrong for that.
And I would say again, I'm taking the present. Present is that the residual conviction that I have to guess right in every moment.
Mm-hmm. Wow. If there was a last piece of advice that you could give to anybody who's listening, what would it be?
I thought you were going to save me here. Okay.
I had like five flash through
Yeah,
my mind.
right.
It's hard to pick one.
It's like a favorite child.
Um,
I'll
I
go.
know. Wait. I got mine.
You got go.
Because this goes along with your born unbreakable. Um, it's a little bit off the topic of what we've mostly talked about today, but all things work for good. It's true. Now, if people can't believe that, if they've heard it but they don't buy it, they can't believe it. Just I tell my kids sometimes because I've raised them with that. All things work for good. All things work for good. All things work for good. If you can't find the good will be revealed. All things work for good all the time. Um, if you can't believe that in the moment, just let those words ring in your mind. Let your sometimes our brains are good for things. Let your brain tell you all things work for good. All things work for good, because it's true. And when we know that, it can just get us through anything. We are unbreakable when you know all. this too is leading me to something good, better, a life that I can't imagine, more authentically who I am. You just have to keep moving. You have to keep taking the next step and the next step. And then before you know it, you'll be living it. But we all have difficult times. And sometimes just having that trust and that faith that this is working for my good. And maybe in the darkness, I can't see it, but the light will come and reveal it all. And it's just true. It's true. It's not just good words. It's true.
I love that. And I believe that.
So I have a bunch of favorite children here as well. And I think this is actually it's a two-parter. And the first is it's taking off on hers is life wants what you most want except better. Julie was described to me as the deepest dream I didn't even know I was dreaming. So dream your dream. It's good to dream dreams, but know that life wants something for you that's better than anything you could dream. And that gets into the second piece, which is that everything that we most want resides in the unknown. And I'll just leave it at that. There's I could write a treatise on that. But just like us getting together here today, we didn't know what to expect. If we'd had all these ideas, we'd have come with ideas and, oh, you're a podcaster, we're interview guests, we could talk about this, we're trying to get this. We're just responding to life and seeing what unbelievable thing resides in the unknown. And that is the beautiful and true way to live. So thank you so
and
much
it
for
really is.
these moments.
Thank
and for
you.
This
I mean, this
presence.
energy has been amazing. And you know, it's like this gift that keeps on giving when I'm able to have space like this and you're better than when you came, and you share in this thinking. I have this thinking that if people recognize that in the interactions and the moments and the experiences, how much beauty and abundance could we all experience if we truly embrace the power of that betterment. So I know that I am better, leaving this conversation, and I hope that anybody who's listening feels the same way. And I appreciate for two busy folks with kids and so many other things that you're doing in your life that you've decided to take the time today to share with me. I appreciate you both.
I don't know how to break this love fest. It's like when we used to get on the phone when I was living in Raleigh and she was in Chapel Hill, and it'd be 3 a.m. and I said, okay, 1, 2, 3, hang up. That's what this got to be. It's got to be when no one wants to break the field.
I know, just 1, 2, 3. Okay. This is amazing.
It's been a great talking to you. And yeah, we are also leaving this conversation different and grateful for the changes that you're making in us, for who you are, with that beautiful smile, those sparkly white teeth.
Thank you for recognizing my dental, choices. I love that. Well, I'm excited for people to follow you, and I'm putting your book and your website in the show notes so people can be touched by the gifts that both of you bring to the world. So thank you again for coming on the show.
I would say just the best way to reach us is it's either Dave at davegold.com, DAVEGOLD, or Julie, JULI, no E. So whatever, if people just whatever they want, whatever they feel called to, if anything. And then again, you're the gift that keeps on giving right there in their backyard. So there's an abundance of riches here.
Awesome. Well, thank you both. Enjoy the sun that you're now getting.
Well, we were. Now the rains are coming again. Doesn't matter. All right.
The sun will come up again. Thank you both.
Yes.
It was so amazing to have Julie and Dave on the show, my first couple together, and we certainly had very strong empathic energy. If there's anything that you know about empaths, or maybe it might be the first time you're learning today, we feel other people's energy very strongly. Especially when we're in the presence of one another, and even virtually, because we are very keen on reading things like facial expressions, body movement, things of that nature. So it was really cool to share in that space with others who understand energy and how it moves us. It moves us. So much that I took away from my conversation with Dave and Julie, but just a few quick things. The first thing is to recognize your greatness and your capacity to love despite the challenges, the hardships, the strife, the agony, the trauma that you've experienced. I know if you are going through something right now, it might be hard to feel those words, because what you might be feeling is pain and anguish. But know that better is waiting for you. Don't give up on hope. Don't give up on dreams, and know that there's always the better next thing coming. And I truly believe in what Dave said, is that the best and the beauty is in the unknown. And so often it is what we fear. We fear the unknown because we don't have control. And so that is another message, is around presence. Are you present? That is something that I cannot stress enough. And I may have said this before, and I'm repeating myself for those of you who have tuned into other episodes. But if there is one thing that I can tell you that will help you see beauty in the world, is to be present at every moment. It's very easy to be distracted. One of the beautiful things I love about doing this podcast is the reminder of when I'm engaging with guests is to be present and fully hear them, embrace the moment, and walk away learning something new, being a person who is committed to getting better and better, because I don't know everything, and I won't know everything, even when my physical body isn't on the planet anymore. So it's my commitment every day to keep on fueling myself with new knowledge, new information. And if you're present, you will have that gift too, all day long. But it's just a matter of appreciating it. Know that life is a school. What I mentioned, those conversations when you're, if you're in a Starbucks line, if you're shopping, you're interacting with people, take those moments, those interactions, those conversations. You can learn so much from the people around you if you just take the time to take that in. Don't walk around with blinders on. We walk around sometimes just tuning things out, being in our own little isolated world. Take the world around you in. Yes, there are things that are maybe negative that you don't want to take in, but if you see the good, good will come. So I hope that you feel inspired. If you have gone through heartbreak or what you might call a failure, fail forward. Know that more is coming, because look at Dave and Julie. 62. Dave is living his best days, and even better than when he was making all of the money and had all of those successes, because he's truly living in his purpose and living in love at that stage of his life. So Hopefully this gives you some perspective. Remember that you are your only limit. So take action. Take action today because tomorrow is not promised. I appreciate you tuning in. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe or the follow button so you don't miss any future episodes of the Born Unbreakable podcast. And if you're so inclined, leave a rating and review. It does mean a lot and it helps people to find this podcast. I have to say that I'm very excited. This has nothing to do with anything but my excitement. This is like a PS. I bought a ticket to CrimeCon Las Vegas this weekend. Thank you to my really good childhood friend Renee who told me about it. I have a very busy weekend, but I am going to fit that in wherever I can because you know now, if you hadn't before, that I am a true crime fan. I listen to true crime every day, and there's going to be such awesome people from podcasts, from crime podcasts, from Dateline, from all these amazing shows and experiences in the crime space. And I, as much as I can, am going to try to soak that in. So if any of you are going to be there, let me know and maybe I will see you there. All right. See you next time on the next episode.